Okay, let's just jump right in. Can machines think? It's the ultimate philosophical question, right? The one that basically sparked an entire scientific revolution. It is a deceptively simple question that has haunted computer scientists and philosophers for centuries. And honestly, it's a question we're all kind of subconsciously asking ourselves every single time we open a chat window on our phones to talk to an AI. Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're decoding the Turing Test. We aren't just looking at the history here. We're really going to unpack the deep philosophical flaws in how we attempt to measure machine intelligence. We're going to explore exactly why the boundary between human and artificial minds is currently dissolving right before our eyes. We'll look at where this whole metric started, where it completely broke down, and where we actually go from here. What's genuinely fascinating is how René Descartes prefigured this exact problem centuries ago, way back in 1637, long before microchips, before software, before even the concept of electricity as a tool. He argued that, sure, you could build an automaton that utters words, but he claimed it would never be able to arrange its speech in adaptable ways to reply appropriately to everything said in its presence. He recognized super early on that mere speech isn't intelligence. He defined human intellect precisely through our capacity for varied, contextual, and just deeply adaptable linguistic responses. Section 1. The imitation game. So, for hundreds of years, Descartes' philosophical line held completely firm. But then in 1950, a brilliant mathematician and computer pioneer named Alan Turing decided to bypass the muddy, nearly impossible definition of the word thinking entirely. He wanted a practical measurement. So he looked to a popular Victorian parlor game. Picture the scenario. An interrogator, player C, sits in a separate room and tries to guess the sex of two hidden players using only written notes passed under the door. Player A is a man actively trying to trick the interrogator into thinking he's the woman, and player B is a woman trying her best to help the interrogator guess correctly. And here is where Turing introduces his absolute genius twist. He drops a digital computer into the mix. He replaces one of the players with a machine. The computer's new task? Deceive the human interrogator into thinking it is the human. Meanwhile, the actual human player is still trying to assist the judge. Turing essentially stopped asking the abstract question, can machines think? And instead asked a highly pragmatic, testable question. Can they do what we can do? Can they successfully play the imitation game? Section 2. Decoding the Turing Test. Over the decades, Turing's highly specific party game setup evolved within the scientific community into what we now consider the standard Turing test. The absolutely crucial point here is that this standard test doesn't measure if a machine is factually correct. It doesn't measure if it possesses immense computational power or can solve complex math. A human judge simply reads a text transcript between a human and a machine. The machine passes if it can perfectly, indistinguishably imitate human conversational behavior. It's a test of behavioral mimicry, not cognitive reality. Basically, if it walks like a duck and types like a duck, it passes. Section 3. Flaws in the machine. Of course, treating intelligence merely as a behavioral performance, which is essentially an act of deception, opens the door to massive philosophical and practical pushback. Let's look at the glaring weaknesses of this approach. Ironically, early chatbots won prestigious competitions not through sheer genius, but through what's called artificial stupidity. Programmers literally coded their bots to make human-like typos and purposefully delay their response times just to fool unsuspecting judges. Because, nothing says human quite like forgetting how to spell definitely and taking 40 seconds to text back. There's also the language-centric objection, which rightly points out that this test completely ignores other forms of intelligence, like spatial reasoning or physical adaptability. Beyond that, economists heavily warn of something called the Turing trap. If our only goal as a society is building machines that imitate humans, we risk simply replacing human workers and driving down wages, rather than actually building technology that augments and expands our human capabilities. Furthermore, philosopher John Searle took a total sledgehammer to the very foundation of the test with his famous Chinese room thought experiment back in 1980. Imagine you're locked in a room, and you're given a vast, perfectly comprehensive English rulebook that tells you exactly how to manipulate Chinese symbols. People slide questions in Chinese under the door, and you use the rulebook to slide perfectly coherent Chinese answers back out. To the outside world, you seem completely fluent, but inside the room, you don't understand a single word of Chinese. Searle argued that software does the exact same thing. It relentlessly manipulates symbols based on programmed rules without a shred of actual comprehension. This whole concept forces us into a corner with a profoundly unsettling question. What is the real difference between a machine simulating consciousness to win a parlor game and a machine possessing true intentionality, the power of thoughts to actually mean something. When the machine tells you it is happy to help, does it understand happiness? Or is it just spitting out the statistically most likely string of text? Is the machine truly intelligent or just an Oscar-worthy actor? Section 4. Modern AI and ChatGPT. Now, while philosophers were vigorously debating intentionality, computer scientists just kept building faster, better systems. Fast forward to today, and you've very likely taken a reverse Turing test yourself. CAPTCHAs, where you have to click on all the squares containing traffic lights or decipher that distorted, squiggly text, were specifically designed to prove that you are human. Think about the wild irony there for a second. We actually had to build digital tests for humans to take to prove to a machine that they aren't machines, simply because early bots struggled so much with basic visual perception and spatial awareness. The acceleration of AI capabilities since those early days has been nothing short of whiplash-inducing. We started with early rule-based bots like Eliza in the 1960s, which essentially acted like a psychotherapist, just flipping your own words and mirroring them right back to you. It was a neat trick, but highly limited. Then, by 2014, AI algorithms began effortlessly defeating those visual CAPTCHAs. And then, of course, the explosion of modern large language models and the release of ChatGPT fundamentally shifted the entire landscape of human-computer interaction forever. And the data backing up this modern shift is absolutely staggering. A massive March 2025 study evaluating simultaneous 5-minute conversational trials showed that GPT 4.5 was identified as human by the judges 73% of the time. It effectively broke the Turing test by scoring higher than the actual living human participants. Really let that sink in for a second. The machine was deemed more human than the humans. Older conversational models like Eliza were left completely in the dust at 23%. The imitation game has officially been won. Section 5. Beyond the Turing test. So, since we now live in an era where AI can shatter Turing's 1950 benchmark before breakfast, the scientific community has been forced to invent entirely new ways to measure intelligence. Enter the Lovelace test, named after the early computing pioneer Ada Lovelace. This framework entirely flips the script. It dictates that a machine only truly has a mind when it can originate genuinely new things. It demands that the AI move far beyond simply remixing its training data and instead create something so novel and so unexpected that even its own programmers cannot explain how it arrived at the output. Because of this, we're seeing a fascinating spectrum of proposed alternatives that demand way more than just convincing chit-chat. Neuroscientist David Eagleman argues we should test for scientific discovery. Can an AI synthesize existing scientific literature to create a genuinely new conceptualization that actually advances our understanding of the universe? Then there's the Feigenbaum test, which acts like a brutal masterclass exam, pitting machines against human subject matter experts to see if the AI can hold its own in a highly specialized field. And if you want to strip away the conversational fluff entirely, the minimum intelligence signal test allows only yes or no binary responses. This forces the AI to prove pure, unadulterated logical thought without the crutch of eloquent language. Ultimately, as AI continues its relentless evolution past deception and mimicry, we're left to ponder a really central mystery here. If perfectly imitating a human isn't enough to prove you have a mind, what exactly is? Is it creativity? Is it the ability to drive scientific discovery? Is it physical adaptability? Or is it something ineffable we haven't even defined yet? As we continue to build machines that reflect our own intellect back at us with increasing clarity, we might just be forced to figure out what actually makes us human in the first place.